Welcome back to Raw Politics. Well, the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats had a high-profile guest today, Romanian Prime Minister Viorica Dăncilă. She met with the group ahead of two official events, critical events facing her country. A referendum in exactly 2 weeks over the definition of families and same-sex couples, plus a debate next week in Strasbourg over allegations of corruption. And today, Manfred Weber, an MEP, the leader of the European People's Party, he released a video on Twitter accusing the Romanian government of taking the country backwards. Take a look.
The country is going backwards. The fight against anti-corruption and the independence of the judiciary is under pressure. We saw citizens this summer in Bucharest beaten by the police. Frankly, this is not acceptable. The fight against corruption is not a luxury. It is an absolute necessity to protect our citizens and the businesses from state abuse. That's why we urgently ask the Romanian government to change this course. We stand on the side of the European citizens, and we will never bargain over the rule of law.
Weber's comments come after months of protests in Romania. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets this summer to protest the attempted weakening of anti-corruption laws by the Social Democrat-led government. Around 400 people were injured after clashes with riot police, whose response was condemned as brutal by opposition leaders. Well, joining me in the studio to assess Bucharest's latest moves is our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, Euractiv Senior Director, Dăncilă, and UK Labour MEP, Claude Moraes, also from the Socialists and Democrats group. Darren, first I want to go to you about what are we talking about here? We're talking about the referendum. Let's just put out the context.
It's quite complicated and there are lots of different issues. As you say, first of all, there is this referendum coming up on essentially whether gay marriage should be banned. Now, currently, the law in Romania does not ban gay marriage, but gay marriage is also not legal. So it would enshrine essentially in the constitution something that we've seen many other European countries do the opposite of, for example. But this has come about because 3 million people signed a petition. It was passed by the Senate, and now the highest court in the land in Romania has said that this referendum should happen. But that is not what's led to these protests. The protests are also fundamentally about corruption, about a scene and a whole series of scandals that have hit Romania in the last couple of years, and this perception that anti-corruption laws and the ability for corruption to be tackled is failing. The problem where the protests aren't working, where there's been lots of focus on it and lots of people have turned out, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, isn't because it's such a disparate group. It's everyone who's united against the one thing of the government, but are actually divided on how you can possibly change things.
So that's what's happening in Romania. And Claude, you were in the room with the Prime Minister today. Was it really as heated? Is that true? How heated was it?
A question of heated, but she got a very robust set of questions.
Yeah.
She set out what the Romanian position was, and I think what it is, Darren put it very well, there's a lot of history to this. Are there rule of law issues in Romania? Absolutely. I don't think she shied away from that because it's just patently obvious. I think the line she gave, though, was there are some justifications for this kind of transition. There seem to be pressures on the government, also from the intelligence services and other issues. So she gave a lot of this kind of background. But in our group, the Socialists and Democrats, we are very clear, and I'm chair of the committee that's going to have Timmermans, the commissioner, on Monday, examining all of these issues. We're going to have a debate. We're the architects of all of this. So we want her to account. I actually asked about the Vienna Commission that will actually investigate all of this. So we want many of these issues to come out in the open.
She acknowledged that there are a lot of issues.
She acknowledged them, but I think Darren was implying it's quite a complex, murky kind of issue in the sense that many constituencies in Romania are picking on these issues for different reasons. And so I think if you look at Manfred Weber, and I think this is worth saying on a programme like yours, he seems very keen to suddenly get onto Romania when I think Hungary was not such a great issue for him. Right. So all of this kind of equivalence between Romania and Hungary is a little bit suspect.
And Darren, you were also talking to some other people who were also in that meeting
who have to say are using words words, like that it was a tense meeting, that there was clearly some frustration and anger, actually, I think, among some of the MEPs who were there about what is happening, not least of all, on this gay referendum. There was a sense that this was very contrary to the principles of the S&D. And also, bunching in a whole load of stuff also that Romania is facing. There was criticism of moving the embassy. There was criticism clearly about the failure to tackle corruption. And the sense among these MEPs is that this needs to be tackled, that this needs to go further. There's talk about it being talked about in committees, and also we know that there is this plenary debate next week in the European Parliament. So I think a real sense, talking to people who were in that meeting or around that meeting, that this was a very difficult day for the Romanian Prime Minister. And actually, we tried to catch up with her afterwards. One of our correspondents, Brian Carter, did. And as you can see, she was not terribly willing to talk. Let's have a look, Tessa.
Prime Minister, what did you discuss about today with the S&D group? Any reaction, Prime Minister? Prime Minister, are you still going ahead with the referendum? Prime Minister, can we get a quick reaction, please? Prime Minister, a reaction regarding the referendum? Prime Minister, what did the S&D group say about the referendum on gay marriage? Prime Minister, can we get one reaction, please?
Dan, I'd like to go to you. You're from Romania. You're following this story very closely. The commentators are saying that the referendum talk, it is a distraction from what's really happening in Romania. Can you bring us up to speed and put the context?
Yeah, as my colleague from the plateau said, there are a lot of issues regarding Romania in this moment. Also, we have a Romanian presidency of the EU starting on the 1st of January. Of course, the government is in the left, and the referendum with the gay marriage is really not good, neither for the party, neither for the government. There are too many things coming in the same time. Let's don't forget Romania, since the accession is in the monitoring mechanism with the European Commission, we have a lot of issues, and we need clarification. We need clarification here in Brussels, in Strasbourg, but also in Bucharest. And this is very important, and happened that next month, it's a paradox. Romania, it's a paradox in this moment. The Prime Minister is inviting the plenary to explain the situation in Romania, and 2-3 weeks later, the President Iohannis is coming to explain future of Europe, the Romanian vision.
Do you feel that there is resistance from the Romanian government to whatever Europe has to say or the EU has to say? They will probably just go ahead and do as they please.
I suppose there are different issues. It's very good that the Prime Minister was here in Brussels. Let's not forget she was 10 years in this building as a member of the European Parliament, a colleague with Mr. Morales. And that's very important. Now, about gay marriage will happen. It's clear 6-7 of October. It's pity that these things happen. I don't believe it was the correct timing. It's not a good question. It's a shame that happened, this referendum.
I was just going to say, and I think this is, again, a sense of this just east-west divide that we're seeing in the European Union at the moment. Yeah. We add on to Poland, we add on to Hungary. We all know the problems with populism. Czech Republic, there is a real chasm opening up, and it's quite a dangerous moment in some regards, because it all depends how the European Union is going to react to this. We have seen Manfred Weber try to take a tougher line.
Or take advantage.
Well, I mean, it depends.
Slightly. But I agree with what you say about the referendum. Let me take that head on. You're absolutely right. I mean, this came via petition, and it's kind of gone into the mix. And yes, people in my group care about it deeply, and I think you're right to it's like a running sore. And to be fair, the Prime Minister did answer it, said it was a petition. She answered this question also about the Israeli embassy, that the President decides, not her. Now, that's irrelevant to the external audience who see these things, and it all adds to this kind of tension. And you're right about the gulf then that starts to open up between Central and Eastern European countries. I was in Poland last week, where many of these rule of law issues and sensitive emotional issues arise. What I think is critical is that we don't treat them all as the same thing. Yeah. And I think you'd agree with me on this, that we look very carefully at what the rule of law issues actually are. And we have mechanisms for that. We've got Article 7, which many people criticise. But what are the issues in Hungary? What are the issues in Poland? And what are the issues in Romania? But be very fair and balanced about it.
No, but what do you think she will need to do when she appears at the end of October?
Well, I think she has to answer as Prime Minister.
I'll give you 30 seconds, Dan, to say what do we look ahead to in terms of looking at the situation of the rule of law in Poland?
You need a lot of
30
clarification, and don't forget the Venice Commissions will come with some report in the end of October,
Yes.
and it's a very crucial
Okay.
report
Yeah.
to base on the arguments, because here we have the feeling there are two parts and it's no judge, and we need some time. But in the same time, it's not only juridical, it's also ethic.
Okay,
Political,
and we
it's
will
ethic
be,
also.
because Romania is on the agenda in Strasbourg next week at a plenary, so we will be watching that very closely.